Coming up next, a Hall of Fame goalie, a groundbreaking free agency signing, and a front office disaster that helped doom a franchise for a decade. This is the story of Rogie Vachon's infamous departure from the LA Kings and how this fiasco would ultimately destroy the career of a Detroit hockey icon, cloud the future of a would-be star, launch the career of a future Hall of Famer, and provide the Boston Bruins with one of the NHL's all-time greatest players. In the 1970s, Rogie Vachon was nothing short of royalty in Southern California. After winning 3 Stanley Cups with the Montreal Canadiens, Vachon was traded to LA in 1971, and he became the backbone of the Kings franchise. Rogie was a second-team All-Star in 1975 and 1977, and a finalist for the Hart Trophy as league MVP in those years as well. And he backstopped Team Canada in the 1976 Canada Cup, the first such six-nation tournament, which Team Canada would eventually win.
Hammers from here is waiting in front, a shot, and Vachon stopped it. Another shot. Vachon again stopped that.
Great save by Vachon. We had clutch goaltending at the other end. Here's an example right here. Hollick taking the shot, Vachon the save, and if you noted afterward, Hollick came up, gave a big pat in the back to Vachon.
The outstanding Team Canada player of this series, I think you know who it is, Rogie Vachon.
In 1977-78, Vachon played 70 games with the Kings, and he played well, but he was now 32 years old, an age that might not raise eyebrows today, but back then, before modern conditioning and dietary regimens, many goalies began to fade at that age. Still, when his contract expired, despite his desire to stay in LA, Vachon became one of the first players in NHL history to test the murky waters of free agency. And this wasn't modern free agency. It came with a catch. Any team that signed a, quote, free agent had to compensate the player's former team, the draft picks, prospects, or in this case, a cornerstone franchise player. At the time, the Red Wings were a franchise crawling out of the wreckage of the Ned Harkness era. Under the new GM, terrible Ted Lindsay, the legendary Hall of Fame Red Wings icon, Detroit had just jumped from a miserable 41 points in 1976-77 to 78 points the next season. Red Wings fans will remember that season's slogan, "Aggressive hockey is back in town." The new coach Bobby Crom, a legendary former WHA coach, had the Wings and their fans believing.
Corner, back to the Montreal net to Hextall. Netamansky holds it in the circle. Took the shot, they score! Nick Libet! Libet got it in, and the Red Wings lead 1-0 on the power play goal.
The team won the first playoff round versus Atlanta before losing to eventual Cup champion Montreal in round 2. Detroit's goaltending was not a problem. The duo of Jim Rutherford and Ron Lowe wasn't elite, but it was serviceable. Still, Lindsay wanted a marquee name. He wanted a legend, and he wanted to stick it to the LA Kings for signing Marcel Dionne in 1975. So he set his sights on Rogie Vachon. So in August of 1978, the Wings shocked the hockey world, and they signed Vachon to a 5-year, $1.9 million deal, making him the highest-paid goalie in the NHL. Lindsay offered goalie Jim Rutherford and forward Bill Lahead to the Kings as compensation. And that is when the madness began. The Red Wings brass, who were basking in the glow of signing Vachon, suddenly looked like they'd been punched in the gut. The Kings rejected Detroit's compensation offer and appealed to the league to arbitrate. The NHL then announced its decision on compensation, and that was none other than Detroit's 21-year-old number 1 draft pick and 33-goal scorer, Dale McCort. He was the face of the Wings' future.
To Campbell, it's broken up. Foligno coming out with McCort. This is McCort moving in on Siltanen. Foligno going for the front of the net. Shot, he scores! Dale McCort with a slap shot that breaks the deadlock with 7-0.
McCort was stunned. The Red Wings were furious. And the Kings? They were elated. Except McCort refused to go to L.A. The young star lawyered up and filed for an injunction arguing the NHL's compensation system was illegal. So while the legal battle dragged through federal court, Detroit opened training camp with both Vachon and McCort on the roster. The fans were confused. The Kings were livid. The NHL was sweating. And Vachon? He was about to find out the hard way that he wasn't in Hollywood anymore. Vachon's Red Wings debut was a train wreck. On opening night at the Olympia, Rogie gave up 5 goals on 14 shots in a 5-4 loss to the St. Louis Blues. Over the next few weeks, he racked up a record of 3-7-3 with a bloated 4.21 goals against average. The fans booed him. The press questioned him. And teammates like longtime friend Terry Harper said he looked, quote, indecisive, rattled, and out of sync. Coach Bobby Crom, once Vachon's biggest backer, was blunt. If Rogie can't do the job, it's best to find out early. Now, meanwhile, Jimmy Rutherford, the goalie Detroit had tried to ship to L.A., was quietly outperforming Rogie. With the McCort ruling hanging in the balance, Detroit played on in limbo. Now, McCort led the team in scoring, but his overall play suffered under the weight of the legal battle. See, in the 1970s, in the NHL, there was a credo most players lived by, quote, do whatever your team told you to do and don't ask questions. So for a player to stand up and say no was something that sent shockwaves through the NHL. And because he questioned the status quo, that led Dale to become an outcast and viewed as a malcontent and self-serving. And by midseason, the Red Wings, once seen as a playoff lock, they had collapsed. Eventually, McCort won his court battle and was allowed to stay in Detroit. The NHL's compensation ruling was overturned. And a full year after the Vachon signing, the Red Wings and Kings were forced to work out a new deal. And the result? McCort, on paper, signed with the Kings, only to be, quote, traded back to Detroit for center Andre Saint-Laurent and a package of draft picks. And one of those picks was a 1980 first-rounder the Kings used to select future Hall of Famer Larry Murphy. Out of this debacle, LA walked away with one of the greatest offensive defensemen of all time. And of course, Larry would one day find his way to the Motor City. However, these were the 1970s Kings we're talking about. So while they gained Murphy, they had already panicked and sent a number 1 1979 draft pick to the Boston Bruins for their third-string goalie, Ron Graham. And that pick turned out to be the number 8 overall pick in 1979, Raymond Bourque.
Shot, save, rebound, score! Raymond Bourque drives it home!
Meanwhile, Detroit spiraled downward. Vachon never found his game in the Motor City. He played one more forgettable season before being traded to Boston for Gilles Gilbert. And Ted Lindsay, the icon once hailed as a franchise savior, was demoted to head coach in 1980, and he was fired after a disastrous 3-14-3 start. The Red Wings wouldn't make the playoffs again until 1984 and wouldn't win a playoff series until 1987. And as the world turns, eventually Vachon would return to LA as general manager. Today, Rogie Vachon is remembered as a Hall of Famer and one of the best goaltenders of the Golden Era. But in Detroit, his name is shorthand for one of the most disastrous moves in team history. As adept as the Red Wings became at managing free agency, they had to learn the hard way. Before Hull, before Robitaille, before the glory days of the 90s and the 2000s, there was Rogie Vachon, the $1 million goalie, the McCort mess, and a bitter lesson that sometimes chasing stars can leave your franchise in the dark. Thank you for watching. In the comments below, share your memories of Rogie Vachon, Dale McCort, and those late 1970s Red Wings. If you enjoyed this look back at the career of Rogie Vachon and the whole Dale McCort fiasco, check out this video of another legend of hockey's golden era.